despite the warning coming from the CDC, the TSA screened over 1 million passengers on Sunday. That's the highest number since March. If you want to get a look at COVID-19 concerns during the Thanksgiving Day travel and the airline industry's push for more virus aid before the end of the year, for that we welcome Sara Nelson. She is the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants. And Sara, this is the conundrum here. You may be concerned about what's happening if a lot of people are traveling right now, but if they're not, you don't have jobs. Where do you come down on this argument?
Well, this is not a normal time at all, Becky. I mean, we are just back to not even 40% of the demand that we were a year ago. And as you noted, business travel is not happening. So the revenues are just half of that. So the airlines, without any government aid, are making decisions. They've gone out and gotten a lot of liquidity to try to stabilize the airlines because they are losing money every single day. But they're trying to cut as many costs as they can. And when the requirements of the federal relief ended on September 30th, that meant mass furloughs. But they've also asked for unpaid leaves as well. So we're actually running at quite short staff. And the other thing that is colliding right now, ironically, is that we are short staffed. We've got more people who have to sit out on sick leave. We've got more generous sick leave policies that are now under strain because of the cost cutting. And so we may actually see flights canceled if there's enough demand, even with that leisure travel over the holidays, because there's not enough staff in place. The other issue, too, is that because we don't have...
Sara, just on that point alone, I want to get the rest of your thoughts on this, but just on that point alone, who do you blame for that, for the staffing shortage? That's a big deal. Is it the airline's fault, or is the government at fault for not stepping in and helping?
Well, the government's at fault. The airlines are doing what they need to do in this market. This market is not a rational market. This is a major disruptor, bigger disruptor than we've seen in over 100 years. And so there is no way to make the airlines operate during this pandemic with any kind of rational thought here and continued thought to safety layers without that government help. So the government relief that we got in place is very different than the rest of the bailout packages for other corporations. What we did was a workers first package, and it covered 70% of the payroll. It required the airlines to keep everyone on their jobs, connected to their health care, still paying taxes, still paying their rent, so helping the economy, and also providing that slack so that the government could also require that the airlines continue to serve all the communities. So all of those requirements are gone, and now what the government needs is these airlines to distribute a vaccine so that we can get the virus contained, get out of this massive economic disruptor and public health disruptor, and actually get this under control. That's not going to happen unless we get the jumbo jets back up in the air and unless we are able to use all of the aircraft in place in the U.S. to distribute that vaccine.
I thought it was FedEx and UPS that were going to be largely responsible for distributing the vaccine, not the major carriers.
What's interesting about that, Becky, is that they will say that, and even the United States government will say that FedEx and UPS only is able to operate when they use the commercial aircraft. They actually outsource some of that, a lot of that cargo to the passenger aircraft. So FedEx and UPS cannot meet the demand alone. And IATA has been very clear on this. This is going to require all of the aircraft, all the commercial aircraft around the world. And they have warned that if governments don't take action to get people off of furlough, pilots, mechanics, flight attendants, we all have to have our safety credentials in place. We've got to have our currency with being able to fly those aircraft. And if we don't get that back in place and make sure that the government is ensuring that everyone is called back to service and able to service those planes are, a lot of those planes are sitting in the desert right now. That's going to take a heavy lift to get them back in place. And we're not going to be able to distribute the vaccine fast enough to get us out of this crisis.
Sara, let me ask you a question. We often have conversations that are put, to some degree, in moral terms about what's required to help, for example, your constituents, the moral obligations related to potentially the distribution of the vaccine, though I will say there is a debate about whether FedEx and UPS can handle this on their own. So I just do want to clarify that point. But let's assume that is the moral argument, and you're on the right side, if you will. Do you think that there's a moral argument to be made that from a capacity perspective, the airlines actually should not be increasing capacity, but should actually be reducing capacity for passengers, given the wild spread of this pandemic in the United States from a healthcare perspective, given what the CDC has said, and everything else?
I think, Andrew, that is what was intended in March, is that we would actually take actions for public health and provide that support from the government in order to be able to do that. We've been missing that cohesive government plan. Joe Biden has that plan, but we're looking at waiting until January 20th to even start to get that in place. And the truth is that regular public businesses, private businesses, cannot make those decisions on their own when you're down 60% in demand and even more than that in revenue. As you know, those pressures do not lead to good public health decisions. So I would agree with the moral argument here, actually the very practical argument about how to get this virus under control. But that is not going to happen unless we get the relief in place. And again, I just want to remind everyone, this is a workers' first program that actually capped executive pay, banned stock buybacks and dividends, and required that government funding only go to supporting those workers. In return,
Sarah,
the airlines are providing the critical infrastructure.
Right. I appreciate that. I think the point that I'm making is one of the things you're seeing is the airlines are increasing capacity during the holidays. They're not just increasing the capacity in terms of planes in the air, they're increasing the capacity in terms of seats that they are filling. What I'm asking you, since you've made many moral arguments on this program, is from a health care perspective. Let's say we'll take care of your people. Do you think it is in the service of America and the health of Americans to put more and more people on airplanes at a time when COVID is spreading like wildfire? That's my question to you.
I will make 2 points on that, Andrew. I agree with you 100% that we should be taking actions for public health first and foremost, because the virus is the problem here. Secondly, I would say that if you want to look at the conditions on board the aircraft, when you have that support, the airlines have been able to put in place layered safety procedures that make it one of the most controlled environments in the country. And so without that support to continue to make those good decisions about having very liberal sick leave policies, ensuring the mask requirements, ensuring that they are continuing the airflow and HEPA filtration, ensuring that they are continuing the cleaning as they have been doing, all of those things
Sarah,
can lead to a controlled environment. Sure.
Sarah, let me turn it around. Do you support the CDC's decision to tell passengers not to get on airplanes this holiday season?
Well, let's be very clear. I think every business across America supports the CDC's decision on that, and that is why we're seeing decreased revenues, because business travel is not taking place. And rational people understand what needs to be done here in order to get public health policy in place that can control the virus. So yes, I support that, but with it, I'm being very clear that it is just not possible unless this government takes action right now to extend the payroll support program. It is not possible for us to do those things that support that public health policy unless that action is taken. It can be taken. I want to remind everyone, in March, there was a vote 96-0 and 419-6 in the House in favor of doing exactly this for $2.2 trillion. There is no reason this same exact Congress cannot do that when they come back from this Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah. Sarah, I guess there's a long line of people waiting to hear something and have something done. Congress has not done it to this point. I don't know that it's going to happen right after, but we appreciate your time and we appreciate your making the case. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Becky, and it's got to happen.